Oh, hello. In today's video, we're going to run down the Kill Team Balance Dataslate that released a couple of days ago. I know, not early, but possibly the most in-depth, who knows? Let's go see. So, overview. They didn't do a MetaWatch video this time, I guess because Elliot's too busy putting the finishing touches to the new edition. No, I'm joking, the new edition will have been printed and stacked up in warehouses if it's been coming out when we think it's coming out, but perhaps Elliot couldn't be bothered to remind himself how the previous edition works. I don't know. Maybe he's busy working on the next edition. But for whatever reason, no video. There is an article, and I will put the link down to the Wacom article in the description if you haven't seen it. Article's not very interesting, okay? What's interesting is the dataslate itself. It's a real mixed bag of changes. Some of them are really meaningful changes that will genuinely change the way you play the game, and some bits are a bit more of a tidy up. As I alluded to in the title of the video, this does feel like the final Balance Dataslate, and there are some of the changes here that I think link up to rules changes that we're going to see more generally for the whole game going forwards, okay? So, Pathfinders, let's give this a read. So, the MB3 Recon drone, the Analyze unique action, you can reroll one of your attack dice instead of any or all. Okay, that's a significant nerf to the Recon drone. I do think it's still an auto-include. Now, I'm not a Pathfinders expert, I've never mained Pathfinders, but I don't think that change is really going to make you consider not taking the Recon drone. The drone controller Pathfinder, so the drone controller Pathfinder's Operative's Drone Scout ability. Now, as a refresher, this is an ability that allows a drone, if you've taken your drone controller, a drone can have a forward deploy. I think by default it's up to red, but not within red of the opponent's stuff. But yeah, it's quite a powerful forward deploy. And that stays the same on Season 1 maps, right? What they've done is they've changed it for the other two modes of play. So let's read that. Drone Controller Pathfinder. Operative's Drone Scout ability. In a battle that uses hazardous areas rules, that's Beta Decima to you and me, the drone operative must be set up wholly within 2 circle of your drop zone. In a battle that uses close quarters rules, you cannot set up the drone operative as specified. Instead, at the end of the scouting step, if that drone operative is wholly within your drop zone and has a conceal order, it can perform a free normal move or operate hatch action, and its order cannot be changed during the first turning point. So, yeah, one of the things that I think is proving problematic in the kind of autumn days of this edition of Kill Team is forward deploy. I really hope we get a unified forward deploy rule, for the next edition, and that some data sheets can just be written to, this model has a forward deploy, or this model grants forward deploy to, one miniature with the drone keyword, or whatever you want to say. But let's just codify what a forward deploy is. Let's have that as a USR in the rulebook. And then if you want to have kill zones, like Beta Decima or Into the Dark, that then say, oh, when you're playing on this kill zone, forward deploys don't do the thing they said in the main rulebook, they do this other thing. I think that would be the best way of handling it. But I think it's a bit strange that it does different things, wildly different things on different maps, but it makes perfect sense. I genuinely think it should handle all forward deploys like this, because a forward deploy is much more powerful on different kinds of kill zones. Then again, we don't know with any certainty to what extent all these different kill zones will make the jump into the next edition. But I do like that as a way of handling it. And then we've also got the Recon Sweep Strategic Deploy. So the Recon Sweep Strategic Deploy lets you do a free dash. Essentially, you have to be within red of a table edge, but it lets you do a free dash. And now they just said you can't use that in the first turning point, so just further trying to pour cold water on that Alpha Strike. So, a suite of nerfs to Pathfinders, I think. I don't play into or with Pathfinders at all very often, so I've not really, I seem to dodge them a lot in tournaments. I've not really got a great handle on how powerful Pathfinders are. But certainly they do seem to have copped another significant 7 nerfs, right? Moving on, Legionary. So, Your roster can contain operatives with all 4 Mark of Chaos keywords, but when selecting a kill team for the battle, you can't select operatives with the Khorne keyword if you've got any with Slaanesh and vice versa, and you can't select operatives with Nurgle keyword if you've selected any with Tzeentch and vice versa. I'm surprised that they're using vice versa again because, please don't get upset by this, Americans, but I do remember there being a thing a little while ago where apparently many Americans don't know what vice versa means. Maybe that was a meme. I don't know, but I remember they had to define that the long way round somewhere. That was definitely a Games Workshop thing. Don't know. Maybe I'm talking complete nonsense. It seems possible. Anyway, this seems like a really good change, right? It was always weird that you couldn't have all your marks on the roster. So now you can, as far as I understand with Legionaries, it's something like you mostly want to run Nurgle and then into like Kazakin, you want to run to Tzeentch. Does that ring true? It's something like that, right? And so people were upset that they couldn't do that for a tournament, that they couldn't have the Nurgle and obviously it's the same miniatures, right? You don't paint a green ones for the Nurgle ones and a blue. I mean, you could, right? If you wanted to be a real hobby hero, you could paint 4 Legionary teams. But people don't generally do that, right? And so now you can do that thing where, like I said, I think the thing that people were after doing was having Nurgle into Tzeentch so they could run all Nurgle most of the time and then all Tzeentch into, I think it was Scions and things like that that have a real overabundance of those high AP weapons. To be honest with you, I think we should dump the roster in the next edition. I like actually the idea of people bringing their entire collection for their team and doing some list building at the table side. Like, I like that as a thing. I think that in general we should try and have, going forward, more teams with more operatives, right? I personally wouldn't be adverse to taking like 30 miniatures to a game of Kill Team and then using 6 of them. Like, I don't think that's a problem. And I know that sounds extreme to some people, it is an extreme example, but I don't think that's a problem. So I think having an artificial roster cap at 20, it would make Inquisition really powerful. Cool. Like, make not necessarily every team, because of course you can have different kinds of teams, but make lots of teams that have the same depth as Inquisition. You can turn up with like an entire 40k army worth of miniatures and just be like, cool, now pick the 6 or 10 that I want for my game. I think that's cool. I think having an artificial roster cap is kind of poor, really, but just my opinion. Let me know in the comments if you agree. Blooded. So the traitor Ogryn operative, light terrain, and operatives with a wounds characteristic of 15 or less do not provide cover for this operative. So this is a nerf for the blooded, which they didn't really deserve. What's happening is this is a rule that's bringing the Ogryn for blooded into line with the big chunky Gellerpox infected fellas, the new Brood Brothers Patriarch, and I think maybe some other like bigger, chunkier miniatures. It is a nerf. I don't think they've had this nerf because anyone's been like, oh, the blooded Ogryn is really strong. Oh, they're winning too many games. I genuinely think it's because in the new edition, they have a rule, like a big guy rule, probably called like Hulking Brute or something, but a big guy rule, right? And it's saying, okay, so your big guys, that light terrain and operatives with less than 15 wounds don't provide cover for big guys. And so they're just kind of rolling out that change first, and then when they redo all the data cards, they'll have this big guy keyword, right? It would be my guess. I don't know anything. This is just what I'm guessing. But I think that's what happened. It's a tidy up rather than a balance change. It does affect balance, but that's not the intent as to why it's been done, in my humble opinion. High-Retech Circle. So this one's a little bit tricky. The rule says reanimation protocols ability. Operatives are successfully. I'm covering this up slightly, aren't I? There we go. Operatives are successfully animated on 2+. They gain D3 plus 2 lost wounds and can be placed within blue of that reanimation token, but not within engagement range of enemy operatives in order of your choice. Now, if you read that, you'd think, okay, cool, they've gone down from D3 plus 3 to D3 plus 2. It's a little bit of enough. They have also, if you look at the old wording down the bottom, they've lost the clause that says to resolve this before living metal. So for those of you that aren't too familiar with Hierotech Circle, living metal is the ability whereby all of your guys that have taken some wounds, they can regrow a small amount of it. It gives them that kind of undead feel, right? They can regrow a small amount of wounds at the top of every turn. So now it's saying that the reanimated guys can't do that. Obviously, if they survive the turn they get up, the next turn they can benefit from living metal. But it means that all your resurrected Necrons, they're going to have to survive a turn with between 3 and 5 wounds, right? Which, you know, a stiff breeze will kill something with that sort of number of wounds. Like, so that's going to make Necrons feel a lot fairer as someone that you're playing into, right? You know, it's going to make it so that you don't feel like I've killed half the team and then they just came back. And you know, maybe you trade, like, because the Necron player, I've had this before, I played a game against a good friend of mine with Necrons, and you make what you think are pretty good trades. Like, yeah, okay, they killed that guy, but he killed maybe 2 guys, or killed a guy and chipped another guy, and I'm doing pretty well. And then all the Necrons just come back, and it's like, oh. Like, intellectually, I knew that they were going to do that, but I wasn't quite prepared how that was going to feel. So now at least they're going to come back and they're going to be kind of mostly dead, and then maybe you can deal with them, maybe you can't. Like, if you still traded away all your pieces, it's still good, but it is definitely a significant nerf to Necrons, which probably they deserve. I think also it is another nudge in the direction of taking the Technomancer, right? Because he has some kind of healing ability, I think, if I'm right. I hope I'm right on that. The Exaction Squad. So the Exaction Squad have gained a couple of buffs, because the Exaction Squad feel like one of those teams that just don't exist. I don't think they're awful. They're just nobody plays them. I just don't see them very often, right? So they gain a couple of buffs. Terminal Decree, Strategic Ploy. Each time a friendly Exaction Squad operative makes a shooting attack against an enemy operative within 2 circle of it, or each time a friendly Exaction Squad gunner operative makes a shooting attack, regardless of distance. So basically, this was one of those ploys that gave you a reroll, like for all your guys. So previously it was if all your guys do a shooting attack within 2 circle, you get a reroll. Now it gives it also to the gunners at any distance, which is great, because it means that you can give it out and it will basically apply to all the shooting that you do every turn, which is, I think, is a good buff. I always think that these reroll, given that you can spend 1 CP to get a reroll after the fact with command reroll, right? When you're looking at these strat ploys where it's like you have to turn it on, you have to be pretty certain, to make that command point worth spending, you have to be pretty certain that you're going to get 2 rerolls, right? Rather than 1. Otherwise, it's just not worth doing. Because if you spend it and then get 1 reroll, then you may as well have waited until you'd seen the dice and decided whether you need to spend it for the 1 reroll, right? Similar-ish story with Dispense Justice, to be fair. So Dispense Justice is also a reroll thing, but it's a reroll in combat. And now it's reroll any or all of your attack dice, you know, of 1 result, right? So I can reroll all my 1s, reroll all my 2s, etc. Which is better than the single reroll it gave before. And again, I think that's a good buff because of the same thing. Is this gonna? I don't actually think Exaction Squad is that bad. I just don't think that they appeal to be like Kill Team. There are so many teams, right? In Kill Team now, so many factions that it feels like popularity is not always related to actually how good they are, right? I don't think Exaction Squad are actually that bad. They're just, for whatever reason, not that popular, because they're not new, so people aren't trying them. People tried them when they were new and didn't have much success with them, and now, is this buff, does it have that kind of X factor, that kind of sex appeal to make you suddenly go, actually, yeah, I'm going to pick up my Exaction Squad? I don't think it does. That doesn't mean I understand. I'm not necessarily saying they need a much better buff, but if they want to move the numbers of people using them, they need to almost... In some ways, it's better when they overbuff something and then they slowly bring it down, because at least they get that. You got to remember, there's that. I did a video, it feels like over a year ago now, called "How Does Hobby Affect the Meta?" And I always think, if someone's got, as I have, right, Exaction Squad on sprue, right, and I need to build undercoat and paint them before they see the table. Is this the change? Is this the change that's going to make me go, yeah, all right, my next team is Exaction Squad. I'm going to build, and paint them now. I don't think so, right? I think there is a team that's gotten buffed to that extent, which is coming up next. But I think people make they make a judgment about a team when they first come out. If they don't super love the lore, and people are kind of saying, "Oh, they're not that great," then that team just gets shelved, and it takes a lot. They almost have to be over buffed to get that participation, or someone needs to come, like, remember when Ace came out with Phobos and won a golden ticket with Phobos, and then suddenly everyone's like, oh yes, Phobos are nobody thought Phobos were really good until Ace won a golden ticket with one, and then everyone's like, oh yeah, you know, Phobos, they're probably the best team in the game, and all this stuff. It's like, that's because, and they are a good team, it's not me saying they're not a good team, but nobody was playing them. And then one hero comes and plays them, and then all the people are like, well, if he sees something in them, there'll be something in them. And then loads of people play them, and then people start to go, oh, now I understand the tech of the team, right? It's the meta is socially constructed as much as anything else, right? It's not just about making something has to feel like you want to pick it up and play it. And people always underestimate this. And I don't know whether it's because of the rise of things like Tabletop Simulator. But in the real world, there's like a month of hobby project there in terms of building and painting the kill team, right? People don't just sit like I mean, I know you watch some channels, like I think Andy at Glass Half Dead actually does have every single team built and painted, just like as a thing. He's built and painted them all as they've come out. So some people probably are in that position where they can just pick their team off the shelf ready to go. But I reckon for most people, there's this thing of, well, it has to seem appealing enough for me to want to build and invest the month of hobby evenings, right, to then get to the point where I want to give it a go on the tabletop. Food for thought. So buff, but I don't think it's going to make the team wildly popular. Hearthkin Salvage, this is an interesting one. This is an interesting one because they've got some really fun, like, normally when we get balance adjustments, they're not like fun and thematic, they're very kind of mechanical, right? Hearthkin Salvager feels like they've found some really cool thematic stuff that was on the cutting room floor originally. So let's read this. All operatives gain the following ability: Secure Salvage. Each time a friendly Hearthkin Salvage operative fights in combat, if it's within circle of objective marker, in the resolve successful hit step of that combat, you can subtract 1 from the damage inflicted on it from your opponent's successful hits to a minimum of 3. Like, wow, that's like a big deal. Like, that's like a cool team-wide rule that you get. I think if that cost a command point, you might pay for it every time. But it's just a cool team-wide rule that you get for free. Don't have to do anything. Don't have to think. Don't really have to adjust strategy, right? Because you're going to do combats on every kill team, right? In the history of kill team, ends up fighting a close combat on an objective, because that's what the game devolves into after. Yes, you have your cool tactical shooting game with your positioning and your laser line and your towing in and your toe. But at some point, it devolves to a fist fight in a minefield, right? I always say turn 3 is the fist fight in a minefield turn. Right, that's the point where everybody's done the cool, oh, he's in the clock tower, he's got sniper lane, he's this and that, right? And then you get to turn 3 and it's like, right, okay, now we you know, our guys have taken off their shirts, right? They're bloodied and bruised, and they're having a fist fight in a minefield. That's what it will devolve into, right? And some teams just, like, if you're playing Felravager or something, you're just like, I am all in on it getting to fist fight in a minefield faster, admittedly, but even against 2 shooting teams, because you need to be on the objective to win the game, you'll be fighting a close combat on the objective. So this is, like, really good. And really cool. And then also, just for cherry on top, the Thane gains the following ability: Force Field, and again, just get it for free. Force Field, the first time an attack dice inflicts 4 or more damage on this operative during the battle. Nah. That's pretty cool. I mean, it's just a free, here you go. Woo. Cool. There are these cool, thematic, weirdly specific buffs, and it feels like almost they were going to be in the team, and then they were left on the cutting room floor. And they've made salvages, they've added, like, tankiness and a certain stickability to their faction identity, which I just think is cool and dwarven, right? It's a shame that the Leagues of Votann don't look more classically like Old World or Tolkien-y dwarven in it. Like, I want proper dwarf. Anyway, side point. these changes aren't mentioned in the article on Warcom, where they like rationalise why they've done the various things they've done. So the most weird, like, wow, why have they done that kind of changes, aren't actually like mentioned in the article. But there you go. I would guess they're trying to carve Salvagers an identity that's separate from the Jaegers, right? So when the Jaegers came out, a lot of people, myself included, said, well, if you like Votann, buy the Jaegers, because they're just cooler and better in every way than the Salvagers. And rather than give the Salvagers just like a straightforward buff, like, here's an extra model, or here's some extra points of damage on your equipment, or here are all the things that we expect to make them better, they want to make them different. They want to have the two teams in the game and have them feel interesting and different, so it's a choice, and I applaud them for it. Feels a little out of left field, but I think it also feels really cool. So I like the changes, and I applaud them for it. The Felravager. So Felravager's got a number of changes. Okay, so the Flux Bray, Mangler, and Vandal operatives replace all instances of Relentless with Ceaseless. Now, this is a really good change, maybe. It's straightforward enough, right? I kind of hate Ceaseless and Relentless because I still have to look them up every single time, right? Ceaseless is reroll ones and Relentless is reroll any. So they've taken some operatives that have the ability to reroll any and all of their misses and changed them to know you can reroll ones. It's a nerf. It's probably quite a clever nerf. It's probably reasonably well called for. It's just not particularly... I just don't like the rules. There's nothing about the words ceaseless and relentless, to me, to my brain, that helps me hook on and remember which one is the better of the two abilities and which one is the worst of the two abilities. I remember what they do. I remember that they're ceaseless and relentless, and one is reroll all and one is reroll ones. But I always have to ask my opponent or look it up at the tabletop to remember which is which, because I just can't, nothing about ceaselessness and relentlessness, they're not different enough names. As a change, it's probably fine. The Nalskar and the Mangler, right? Subtract 1 from their wounds characteristic. So the Nalskar and the Mangler weirdly had 11 wounds, the rest have 10. I think this is probably a nerf. They were looking for nerfs to do. This one makes a lot of sense to me because... if it's me, I'm going to forget they have more wounds anyway, because it's random, and it doesn't seem to correspond to anything on the model, or in the lore, and it's not the standard thing of the leader having +1 wound. These are like extra dudes, so, yeah, good, fine. And then you've got the Reckless Determination Strategic Ploy. Each time a shooting attack is made against a friendly Felravager operative that's not ready and is in cover. So it used to be, this is one we need to understand what it used to do. So Reckless Determination has been significantly nerfed. It used to allow all of your not ready operatives, regardless of where they were standing, hence recklessness, right, to retain a defense dice, right, when they were shot. Now they have to be in cover, so presumably they can retain 2 dice, because they get 1 for being in cover and then 1 for this being active, which is pretty cool, but it does at least mean that you have to, when you're moving your little goatman around, you have to still play the game. You can't. It stopped it from being. It's basically stopped it feeling like I can just turn this on and it's as if all my guys are in cover. To I can just turn this on and if I'm in cover, I get retained. Retain 2 is still super strong, but it just means you actually have to play the game. And it's worth saying it's not actually anything to do with the cover rule. So because it will have obviously no interaction with the no cover special rule. I'm just using that as a shorthand to explain how it works, which may confuse it for some people. But you're just retaining an extra defense dice as a success before you roll them in the same way that you would if you were in cover, and presumably it stacks with cover, right? And now we're going to talk about the Scout Squad. So the Scouts have gained an extra operative. So they get an extra operative, and the Hunter and the Warrior get +1 to both damage characteristics of their combat blades. So this seems pretty huge. 10 models with 10 wounds is a really strong thing. First of all, that's commandos, isn't it? And commandos are really popular, and now we have basically got human commandos, and that's pretty cool. 4/6 combat blades are a bit nuts. And so now, I'm glad, everything I said about the Arbeits change not being big enough to make me want to look at that team, I have a scout squad that's unbuilt on the sprue. Pretty pleased because A, I would have built all the warriors that you have to take probably as shotguns, and now I'm serious for your non-specialists, do you take shotguns, or do you want to take the pistols and combat blades, I think? Let me know in the comments. Because I never rated the bolter option, and I previously would have said all shotguns, but now I think the take is pistols and combat blades, because these combat blades are good at 4-6, 4 dice at 4-6 is, yeah, yeah. It's funny enough, the chainsword on the sergeant is 4-5, but it is getting 5 dice. And if there's one thing we learned, it's that attack dice number is king, so I'm not that worried about that much. Let me know what you think about would you go shotguns, would you go combat blade now, or are you going to tell me, no, Phil, you fool, it was bolters all along for some reason. Right, and that really is that. So let me know in the comments if anything on this Balance Dataslate really jumps out to you as being really interesting. Have you read the whole thing yourself? Have I missed anything important? Do you feel inspired, right? Because I'm now thinking about scouts, although the next team I'm going to do is selected by the community for the next hobby challenge. More on that at a later date. But I do now feel kind of inspired to look at scouts again. Do you agree with me that this is like laying the ground for the next edition, perhaps? Thank you to all my members, anyway, and a special thanks to Nightfall and Massive Crypt, who have subscribed at the highest tier. If you've enjoyed this video, please do like, subscribe, comment, join the Discord, and then consider the membership program if, you just have spare money that you want to throw away to a random guy on YouTube. Thank you so much, really appreciate it. See you next time. Cheery, cheery, bye.